All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Whitman, and we're going to have a fun show here, man. We got a bunch of awesome mailbag questions from all of you out there, and then also going to be diving into an interview with Alex Barbour of the Hail Mary podcast. I went on to his channel and talked some draft a few months ago, and we just had a ton of fun talking draft and all that stuff. And he's actually a Steelers fan at the core, so we just did the Steelers deep dive. He's going to come on, offer up some fan criticism, some where I was right, where I was wrong. We're going to reflect on that last deep dive. Going to be a super fun interview. So great podcast ahead. If you are watching here on YouTube, please do hit that like button down below. Also, if you are listening to the audio version, which, by the way, is available on all of your podcasting services, just search Fully Inflated Football Podcast. Do take some time to leave a review if you have a second. Really helps me out, helps support and share the feeds. So thank you for that in advance. Also, a reminder that this show and this channel is brought to you by my Patreon. That is patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, where you can really get the ultimate triple threat. Number one, you'll support the channel. If you want to show your support financially, help this thing go, that is the best way to do it. Also, you can get access to this podcast. These mailbag questions come from my Patreon. Just slide into those DMs. You can ask me anything, but lead with mailbag question, and you'll find yourself on the show. But you'll also get exclusive content as well. Starting to pick back up now that we're beyond the draft process here. We're doing film breakdowns. We did one on Josh Allen. We're going to be doing Justin Herbert this week. Also, in a couple weeks, going to be posting my fantasy football draft board, doing the player rankings. It's the first, it's the only true fantasy football content I provide there on Patreon. A bit of a draft kit, if you will, coming out here in the next couple weeks. So support the show, get access to the show, and also get exclusive content there on patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, and I appreciate you guys checking that out in advance. So let's go ahead and get into the mailbag here, and I got to shout out Alex Lyons here, longtime viewer of the show, but also dropping some fire here in the Patreon mailbag with a great question that's actually going to be a bit of a headliner for the show. So Alex asks, what are my top 10 quarterbacks now and my top 10 quarterbacks that could be for 2022? And I'm excited about this question because I've been watching a ton of film over the last 3 months. I've really been diving in, and it has reshaped some of my stances on this stuff. And I did my tier makers video back in January, and I want to do that again as soon as I have time, not just for quarterback, but for other positions as well. But this is going to be a great opportunity to kind of paint a new snapshot of my top 10 now, where I could see things going this year a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that, starting with right now the rankings for July 12th of 2021. I do have Rodgers 1 and Mahomes 2. Now, I'm not going to tier rank this entire thing here. That's why I want to redo the tier maker video. But I will say Rodgers and Mahomes to me are tier 1. Those guys are a cut above everybody else. And if you have Mahomes 1, I totally get it. I mean, he just can do things that Rodgers can't, and really nobody else can other than maybe Josh Allen on this list. Just with the arm talent and the athleticism that I would say Rodgers in his prime probably did have, very comparable, but he's slowed down a little bit. I think the arm is tapered off just a little bit for Rodgers, but Rodgers still at the top of the league. I think he was just behind Mahomes in big-time throws, if not actually ahead of Mahomes. So you're still getting that high end with Rodgers, and you're certainly getting the production, right, enough to win MVP last year. But what you're not getting with Rodgers that you do get with Mahomes is, the turnover-worthy play stuff, which is very much there with Mahomes. You'll take, 3 times the turnovers of some of these other quarterbacks, or at least the turnover-worthy plays that you would expect to result in turnovers. He does get a lot of dropped interceptions, but you'll take that when you're getting the high end from Mahomes. That's really the difference right now, and we'll talk, about for 2022 and beyond where I think these guys come in. But I think right now, coming off of last season, Rodgers just more polished, more methodical. You get that nice baseline with Rodgers, whereas Mahomes, you'll see it dip down from time to time with some more sloppy moments. Rodgers has that nice baseline with the peaks in there as well. So that's my explanation for Rodgers 1 over Mahomes right now. But if you got Mahomes 1, I mean, I'm not gonna argue with it. Like, I get it. But then we got Russell Wilson 3, Deshaun Watson 4, Tom Brady 5, and Josh Allen 6. So Russ is 3 for me. Yes, you're worried about the drop-off at the end of last season, but we've seen him for years and years now play at this top 3 to 5 level. I just feel very good about getting that again heading into next year. And it's not like there weren't those moments last year. He was maybe the best quarterback in the NFL for the first half of the season. And then he had that major drop-off, which, the drop-off is enough to probably take him out of that stable Rodgers-Mahomes tier 1. But I still feel very good about Russ and what we've seen with his high-end play over the last few years. And I think they're putting a better offense around him as well to more cater to his skill sets. Because if you're going to knock Russ's game, compared to the other elites, I would say the playing and structure of the offense and really consistently hitting that middle of the field and getting through those progressions over the middle is going to be the knock on him. Well, that's not going to need to be something they focus on in this new offense. So I'm pretty comfortable with Russ at 3. Then we got Watson at 4, getting a little bit less comfortable there with his off-the-field situation. But, I'm fine leaving him on there. I think he does play again. I don't know for sure if it'll be this year. Nobody really does. But on the field, I feel pretty good about Watson at 4. He was remarkable last year, probably even better than Russell Wilson, honestly. But the consistency for Russ over the last 5 years, a little bit more than Watson. But man, it's that gap is closing if Watson can get back out there soon. Watson was spectacular last year, man. The big plays, the downfield accuracy, the play extension, it's elite. And he doesn't make a ton of big mistakes out of structure either. He's just really, I don't want to use clutch because I kind of hate that term, but he just has that it factor, that playmaking ability to, the play's broken, and to consistently make good decisions when those things break down. It's a really impressive it factor in there with Watson. He's got the physical ability to do it as well. The Texans lost a ton of heartbreaking close losses that were not on Deshaun Watson. Nobody wants to hear those excuses, and everyone wants to look at wins. But the reality is if 3 different plays that went totally against the Texans' way, a couple fumbles and just random crap, if those don't happen, the Texans are a 500 team with one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and that's a testament to Watson's ability. So Watson's 4th. Brady is 5 for me. Brady's not going to give you the same high-end stuff. He's not going to give you that ability to elevate teammates like these other 4 guys are, the out-of-structure ability. But if you put a structure around him, you're going to get a very nice high-end baseline of play. And early on last year, there was actually some moments where there was some variance with Brady, some miscommunication with the receivers, some taking some chances, learning what he can get away with in the new offense. But actually right now, like after what I saw from him the last 2 months of the season, there's not much of a physical drop-off, if any at all. And, he's comfortable in that offense now and looks spectacular. His ability to just make the right decisions based on what coverage he gets and get rid of the ball before he gets sacked, it's just incredible. So I do still rank Brady 5th, and then Josh Allen at 6. He's like the opposite of Tom Brady. I do think he's made really nice steps with his decision-making and his processing, which will need to continue to show throughout his career based on, as much as I like Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, that was the question mark. And then the first couple of years in Buffalo, it was like, well, this guy's just kind of an erratic playmaker type of quarterback. And he started to eliminate some of those question marks last year. I'm not going to say he's like a true candidate for regression, because I think he has shown that he's a guy that will develop his game every year. But just when you look at what he had last season, from the playmakers to the play calling to a COVID season without fans, that I think does play well to a young quarterback, just from the communication standpoint. I don't know if he'll repeat what he had last year. I don't know if it's likely or not, but I'm comfortable with him at 6. And then Lamar Jackson at 7, the hardest quarterback to rank on this entire list. I mean, I think public perception of Lamar has caught up to where I was at with Lamar after his MVP season. I was definitely saying pump the brakes on him as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL because the passing just isn't there at that level. I think he's in the 12 to 18 range of passers. So how much does that number 1 elite running ability elevate that? There's no right equation for that. There's no right answer. For me, it puts him at 7 right now. And I'm just going to leave it at there for Lamar. I will talk about him a little bit more as well when we get to the 2022 ranking. And then Dak actually comes in at 8. I've always kind of had Dak in that 11 to 13 range, but you get a colossal drop-off from Carson Wentz. You get retirement from Drew Brees. I think, Matt Ryan getting a little bit older. Dak's kind of creeping up a little bit here. My stance on Dak hasn't changed that much. I still think, he's got a great processor. He makes amazing decisions, but a slight lack of physical traits, not like this amazing command of the deep ball or elite athleticism, but he's just very good across the board. So that's where I feel with Dak climbing into the top 10, I think for the first time in these rankings. And then Matt Ryan right behind him. Matt Ryan and Dak are just super similar, I feel like. Just high-end processors, good decision makers. Both have outstanding playmakers that they can lean on. And they're going to produce like top 10 quarterbacks as long as they have the right couple groups of receivers out there, just because they're so methodical and steady. And then number 10, Joe Burrow. I've done the Joe Burrow spiel before, but you guys know I love what you see from Joe Burrow. You really get very similar traits to what we just talked about with Dak Prescott and Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. And we saw that as a rookie with just high-end processing, doesn't make a lot of mistakes in structure. He's accurate. Now, he does need to improve that deep ball accuracy, which I have full confidence in him to take developments in that regard, just like a young Dak Prescott did, as a young Tom Brady did. I don't think there's any reason to say Joe Burrow can't do the things that those guys did. But I do have Joe Burrow in there. You add in elite pocket presence and quick twitch athleticism to extend plays on top of that. It's pretty scary. So I do have Joe Burrow as a top 10 quarterback right now. I am bullish on Burrow until proven otherwise. And then for 2022, my rankings, we do get some change at the top with Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. I think that Mahomes is still a young quarterback. He's in what year? Is this just year 4 for Mahomes? Gosh, that's crazy. Maybe year 5? When was he? I think it's year 5 for Mahomes. Sorry, but yeah, he's still super young. I think this is like the year Rodgers got his first start for the Packers, was his 5th season, if not his 4th. But I do think we see Mahomes continuing to develop from all the turnover-worthy play stuff. I think he can continue to cut some of that stuff out, and then Rodgers another year older. And I think that flips. That gap between those two is tiny, so it's not going to take much from Mahomes to retake that one spot in my mind, and I think that probably happens. I think Russ stays at number 3. I talked about the better offense fitting there with Shane Waldron. I wouldn't be surprised if Russ gets back into that elite number 1 tier this year. And then Watson, we might not see Deshaun Watson this year, so it's hard to really move him. And then Brady as well, going to stay at 5, so no change in my top 5 other than 1 and 2 flipping. I don't think we see a huge physical drop-off from Tom Brady, and I think he's actually going to play better than he did last year. I think he's going to be more comfortable in the offense and with these receivers as well, the chemistry. He's got just insane playmakers. I think Brady's going to have another great season this year. So not a ton of change in my top 5, but my number 6 quarterback going to be a surprise here. Gonna take my chances here with Baker Mayfield. I know. So I was not a Baker guy coming out. I missed on his arm talent. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't know what it was about the footage that I saw from Oklahoma that made me think he didn't have a strong arm. But he's got a strong-ass arm. It's definitely the top 10 of arm strength in the NFL, and I think that surprises a lot of people. I've seen analysts I respect come out and kind of admit the same thing I did, where it's like, this guy actually has a piss missile of an arm. And I think that's going to play really well in next year with Kevin Stefanski, that offense, getting Odell back. I think we finally see Baker in a contract year, by the way, or at least in a situation where he's going to earn that big contract, finally blow up and show why he was that number 1 overall pick. The Browns really can't seem to miss. They just keep getting better and better, and I think that's going to finally show up with Baker, who had a rough year last year, man. New offense, had a stretch of like terrible weather games right when Odell got hurt. And then Odell goes down. They don't have a ton of great playmakers around him. Man, I think Baker's going to really thrive this year, and I love his it factor as well. I think he has all the traits he needs to finally get up into this conversation. So I'm going to roll the dice on Baker Mayfield really having a huge year this year, and that is going to be enough to slide over Josh Allen. I think Allen is going to be Josh Allen. I think he's cut out some of the really bad playmaking stuff, but we still see that stuff happen, right? Even in that big Colts win where he was spectacular, it was one of the best games a quarterback played all year. You even saw him trying to do too much late in that game, rolls back, tries to break a sack when he shouldn't have, ends up losing a big fumble, and I think the Bills actually fell on that ball. But that's always going to be there with Allen, and I don't know where that caps him. His amazing season that we saw last year, is he going to be able to produce at the same insane level? I don't know. I don't think we see a massive drop-off from Allen, but I'm still not expecting him to just all of a sudden be Aaron Rodgers and give you super high-end playmaking while also never turning the football over, because that's really what Rodgers has done. I think Allen is a cross between that and I don't want to say Jameis Winston, but I think you get the point there. And then my number 7, Allen was number 7. My number 8 quarterback for 2022 is going to be Joe Burrow. I think it's going to be tough for like public perception because I don't know if the Bengals are going to win a ton of games, but I do think Joe Burrow getting Jamar Chase, I think he starts to look really stable and steady. And I think if he didn't get hurt last year, this would be a much less controversial opinion. But I've voiced my confidence in Joe Burrow, and I think that shows up on tape. And then number 9, Justin Herbert, right behind Joe Burrow there. I think if you were ranking it right now, he'd maybe even be 11. But I'm also confident in Herbert. There's really not much to say. I mean, he's explosive. He was really sharp with his decision-making that I didn't think he would be coming out. And, I think we see a little drop-off in some of the insane big play explosiveness that he got, but I think we also see an uptick with better coaching and him in year 2. So I think Herbert definitely climbs his way into the top 10 next year. There's little reason why he shouldn't, based on what we saw from him as a rookie. And that's going to end up sliding Lamar at 10. I think with Lamar, they're doing a better job to give him receivers, and We've had all this talk about if they open up the offense, what would we get from Lamar Jackson? The reality is I just don't think they're going to do that. I think they love the system they have in place, and they're still going to lean on that read option and the play action attack in the middle of the field. And this is not so much Lamar getting worse. I think it's other quarterbacks getting better. And I think Lamar just kind of stays right there where we're at. I think that's kind of what his career is going to look like. I think he's going to float between 7 and 12. That baseline of the running ability, giving him, a really nice floor, and then decent ability as a passer to elevate that a little bit. And I think that's kind of where Lamar comes in over the next 5 years, is in that 7 to 12 range. So there's my top 10 quarterbacks for 2022, going Mahomes 1, counting down Rodgers, Russ, Watson, Brady, Baker, Josh Allen at 7, Burrow at 8, Herbert at 9, and Lamar at 10. So thank you, Lions, for the great question. And now let's get into some more Patreon mailbag questions from Edward Green. I'm a Chargers fan. I keep hearing Herbert's name as an MVP candidate. Do I think he can win it this year? MVP is a big narrative award, and yeah, he could have the narrative of an MVP. Now, he's in a tough division conference, you got to win the games as well. Are the Chargers going to get to that 10, 11, 12 win season that you usually need to win an MVP? That's probably the first question you got to ask. And then also just the production. Can he match Mahomes in that division? Can he match what other guys do? He has the ability to get to that level, especially in year 2. I think I can't say that he can't win it next year. Would I bet on him to do it? Probably not. But if your question is, do I think he can win it? I would say yes. I think he has an opportunity to get it. From Jake Daughtery, want to hear your thoughts on Miami's co-offensive coordinator situation with Godsey and Stoodsville. For me, it seems like each year they have a weak Band-Aid fix for the offensive coordinator position. Do I see anything of note in these two? No, I don't have anything of note in these two. They were internal hires, and I don't think they're inheriting some great system either. I think it's weird that they went with two guys. No, I really am not very confident in this situation. I think, and I hate to keep dogging on Tua because Dolphins fans just are so tired of it, but he does give you some limitations as a young quarterback, but also a guy whose arm just, I don't know. I don't know if he can open up the entire field in the passing game. So I think they have some challenges there, and especially some challenges with the offensive line as well. So I don't have a lot of confidence in it. I haven't seen anything from either Godsey or Stoodsville, and I think a co-coordinator situation, are they going to have the same shared vision? It's just weird, and they have totally a lot of proving to do there. So I don't personally have a lot of confidence in that, no. But I do have confidence in Brian Flores, so hopefully he knows what he's doing there. From Tyler, in my opinion, a draft bust is an extra level of terrible when their status as a bust is independent of off-field issues and major injuries. With that being said, what are my thoughts on Billy Price as the biggest talent-exclusive first-round bust of the last 10 years? He's had minimal injury problems and simply has sucked to the point where he has a backup only a year post-draft. It's extremely rare for a first-round pick to not even look like a backup caliber player by year 2. I agree. So there's busts that just, were injured, or a quarterback that got a terrible scenario, and you can kind of point to a lot of reasons. And then there's busts that are, your Jonathan Abrams of the world that were just immense reaches, and everybody kind of knew it. But they busted for that value and those expectations because they were reaches in the draft. And then there's guys like Billy Price that really didn't have a ton of red flags as a prospect. He was a first to second round guy. Some people may have been a little lower on him, but it wasn't regarded as a massive reach. And yeah, he just wasn't good. So I think you can make a strong case. Now, I'd have to really dive in and see other guys like him. It does happen, but Billy Price is a rare example, like you said, of a true first-round pick just not having first-round talent. So yeah, I think Billy Price would at least be in the conversation for the biggest true talent busts of the last 10 years. Jonah B asks, if you were hired as an OC, an offensive or defense coordinator, which schemes would I choose to run? Well, all great coordinators cater to their players' skill sets, right? If you got Drew Brees at quarterback, you're not going to be throwing the ball vertical all the time. If you're on defense and you have really athletic edge linebackers, you're not, or undersized, quick, 3-4 outside linebackers, you're not going to run a 4-3 defense. So, as with a lot of questions, it depends. But assuming I had the ideal talent for every scheme, I would say I would run a Shanahan offense. I think it's a healthy balance of giving quarterback freedom to thrive. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, for example, while also just helping them out, creating easy looks, getting them in rhythm. It also helps establish a run game at a really high level. So I think the Shanahan offense, there's a reason it's getting replicated around the league. And then defensively, if I can have a great offense, I want the Brandon Staley defense. Quarters coverages, very good at, 2 safety looks, keep everything in front of you and work down, get after the quarterback, try to create some complicated looks without jeopardizing big holes in busted in coverages. I think the Brandon Staley, Vic Fangio cover 4 defense, if I can have a great offense to support that defense, is outstanding. There might be higher upside defenses like your Blitzburg, Ravens defenses that are super aggressive and in your face and with the right talent can be shutdown defenses. But I'd rather have a top 10 defense and a top 3 offense than a top 3 defense and a top 10 offense. So those are my favorite schemes right now, which ironically the Green Bay Packers are doing both of those off of what the Rams did last year in the same situation. Raging Crocodile asks, Who do you think were the top 5 offenses and defenses from the last 20 years? I'm going to go top 3 for the sake of timing here, but I would say 2019 Chiefs, the big Patrick Mahomes year. I think Peyton Manning forgive me if I get the years wrong, but the year Peyton threw for 5,500 yards, and 2011 Packers, I think, are my top 3 offenses of the last 20 years. And then top 3 defenses, you got to look at those Ravens defenses from the early 2000s. I would go with the Legion of Boom is number 1. I mean, the Legion of Boom is the best defense I've ever seen. I wasn't alive for the 85 Bears, but that's not a part of this question anyway. Legion of Boom. And then you're probably picking between, the Jags, the Bears, and the Steelers of the last 5 years. And the Niners had some great defenses there in the early decade, and maybe I'm forgetting someone, but I would probably lean towards the 2018 Bears, because you had Khalil Mack playing at an unstoppable level, and then just so much talent around there with a great coordinator in Fangio. So I think I would lean towards the 2018 Bears there for the third one, but that's probably who I'm debating. From Anthony, what do I think of Patrick Graham versus Brian Flores? Also, Carter Coughlin is taking snaps at inside linebacker. Do I think this is smart? They come from the Belichick tree, but they do very different things. Flores is going much more of the Belichick route with the man coverage, whereas Patrick Graham, you've seen him implement a lot of the 3-4 multiple concepts, but he's gone more zone there in New York. And I think a lot of that is just playing, like I said, to your playmakers, to your players. And Patrick Graham doesn't have man corners. They got Bradbury, who's great, but he's not a great man corner. And maybe they're trying to get back to more man coverage now that they brought in what's his name from Tennessee. But that's really the big difference, I think, is the personnel that they have. Flores has Xavier Howard and all these great corners and Byron Jones, and he can go man. Whereas Patrick Graham's like, we can't go man coverage. We got to back off and get creative there. I would say Patrick Graham has shown to be a little more creative, actually, than Flores as far as adapting. But Flores has taken that scheme and perfected it. They're both outstanding. I'm really high on both of those players, both those coaches, rather. Carter Coughlin taking snaps at inside linebacker makes a ton of sense. He is an undersized edge guy, but he's an outstanding athlete. So his upside as an edge pass rusher was pretty slim, and I would say his upside is higher at linebacker. So I think that makes a ton of sense, and he can still provide some of that flexibility off the edge. But they needed some linebacker depth there, and I'll be pulling for Carter Coughlin, Minnesota boy. From Galley, who do I think is the Christian Wilkins of this draft? Overdrafted, but a solid player to ensure the first player of the new regime is not going to bust, basically. So let me just pull up the draft just to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody here. Okay. So you want to look probably in the teens there. Maybe Elijah Vera Tucker comes to mind. Yeah, I'm going to go Elijah Vera Tucker. Plays guard, high likelihood that he's a really good player, new regime, maybe not the highest upside player. But yeah, I think that's a really sound answer to that question, is Elijah Vera Tucker to the Jets. Kind of fits everything that you're describing there. From Vic, what's the line for me between going through progressions and not being aggressive enough? My biggest criticism of Hurts is that he doesn't go through progressions. My biggest criticism of Dak is that he isn't aggressive enough, even though he goes through his progressions. And basically that can result in a negative result because he's almost to the book, right? So I'm aware there's a balance, but what is the balance between calculated risk and super reckless? to me, the balance is situation. I love looking at the situation when I evaluate quarterbacks. If it's 1st and 10, I don't want to see Hurts bail from a clean pocket and try to do some crazy stuff. That's when I love to see Dak going through his progression, finding the hole in the zone or taking the check down to the running back. But where I do want to see you maybe get aggressive, maybe you do come off the structure a little bit quicker than you're supposed to because you know that pocket's going to close and you need to buy a little bit of time to get the ball downfield. That's when I like to see the stuff from Hurts and want to see a little more from Dak. I think Dak does throw the ball short of the sticks a ton on 3rd down. That's what the textbook would tell him to do. But when you're going up against an Aaron Rodgers, when you're going up against a Patrick Mahomes, sometimes you need to push the limits there. So I think the line is the situation and knowing the right situation. I think that's knowing when you need to extend plays and when you need to play in structure. And I think that's when the elites really find that balance. I think that's something Rodgers has, Brady to a limited extent because he's not a huge play extender, but he knows when he needs to move in the pocket to buy what time he can. Drew Brees was good at that as well. Russell Wilson, totally. Deshaun Watson. I would say even Josh Allen to a degree. They have that right balance there. Whereas Dak, I think, is a little bit to the book. That's the same thing I say about Derek Carr. But great question. From Nicholas Craig, hypothetically, say the Colts O-line has a lot of injuries and Nelson has to move to tackle. How do I think you would perform? I think the PFF podcast did a great job on their top 50 players kind of talking about this, where Quinton Nelson could be a very good tackle, maybe a top 15, top 20 tackle, but the gap between him and other guards is just so significant that it's not worth the trade-off. But I understand the sentiment of maybe they should play him at the more valuable tackle position. But if he's a top 20 tackle and a top 2 guard, isn't it better to have the top 2 guard and then try to find another top 30 tackle? So I think that's, I'm deferring that. I'm stealing that from the PFF podcast, but it makes a ton of sense, and I totally agree. And I think that's about where Nelson would be. I think he'd be a good tackle, but I don't know if he has necessarily the traits to be an elite one. Joe Woods, if I were the GM of the Saints, what would I do with the new $11.6 million in cap space? I'd save it. I would save it. You don't know what your quarterback situation is going to look like. They've kicked a ton of money into the future, and let's be honest, they're probably not winning a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston. There's something in the NFL called rollover cap. Whatever cap you don't use this year, you can use in ensuing seasons. That's what I would do with the Saints. I would put a pause on this whole all-in mentality and maybe wait to spend that money later. From Dennis, big fan of the channel. Appreciate the consistent content and analysis. Thank you, Dennis. My question is, why'd you rank JuJu over Tyler Boyd in my deep dives? I could see that. I could see why. Boyd is a better... If you separate slot receivers and perimeter receivers, Tyler Boyd would rank higher among slot receivers than JuJu would among perimeter receivers. I think just the way I kind of grade this, the way I kind of process that is perimeter receivers do grade out a little bit higher because there's I would say a deeper, more easy to find group of slot receivers, but that's probably the reason that it came out that way. But I do understand saying Tyler Boyd's a better player than JuJu. He's been a more productive player, at least last year. But I think the fact that JuJu's a perimeter player is probably what's showing up there. From Jack Brown, do I think the Giants end up extending Daniel Jones? If so, for how much? And what would be your way too early prediction for the Week 1 2022 Steelers quarterback? I think the Giants do pay Daniel Jones. That just kind of happens when you invest that much. Kind of like a Jared Goff, for example. I think he has a decent season, so I think they do, and I think he gets $34 million probably because that's just kind of what happens. And that was my criticism of the Daniel Jones pick from the beginning, is not that he's going to suck, but you're going to end up overpaying him. And then way too early for 2022, I would say some kind of veteran signing, whether it's a Dalton or a Bridgewater has a good year and ends up there, or Marcus Mariota. It would probably be my bet. would be they go the veteran route, because I'm not a Dwayne Haskins believer. I don't think he gets to that level by 2022. So I think they probably would go the veteran free agent route, kind of like what the Bears are dealing with right now, or at least have over the last year. From Chris Rivers, Caleb Farley said he should be good to go for training camp. That's awesome to hear, by the way. If so, does he have a chance to make an immediate impact with his lack of time at DB? Will he need more time than most to adjust to the position at the NFL level? Hard to say, because we've never seen a COVID opt-out before. He's a phenomenal prospect. I think he definitely can make an immediate impact. But yeah, I think, the cornerback in general might be the position on defense, at least, that needs the most time. I think linebackers getting into that conversation, but it's hard. It's hard to make a day one impact as a corner. So we'll talk a little bit more about him on the Titans deep dive, I suppose, but I do like him a lot. And if he's healthy, that's going to look like a great pick and probably going to give you an early impact, yeah. From Otter, of all the bottom teams I've ranked so far, 32 through 24, which team is most likely to outplay their ranking? I believe in the Carolina Panthers. I think Sam Darnold works out. I think they're a team that gets a lot of guys that they've drafted to develop and step up. Like Brian Burns plays like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. The Panthers are probably the team, or the Jets, because I just believe in everything they've done. But I think the Panthers at 25 have a very good chance of outplaying their ranking. And then we do have a Madden question. I pushed this to the back of the Patreon questions. What would be my ideal Madden game if everything was perfect? So you say features, presentation, etc. I'm just all about like the ability to team build is really my thing. So I'd want to see fifth-year option, in no particular order here, but I want to see fifth-year options, rollover cap. I want to see better player development, maybe some sort of a PFF grading system in Madden that, like for offensive linemen, that can show like how good guys are playing and they can earn, OLine, develop them in a way. I want the real team building aspect to kind of be that ultimate GM. But anything towards that is my priority. When it comes to gameplay, is obviously important, presentation's important, but for me, I'm much more focused on all of the trade logic as well, and accurate contracts and all that stuff, accurate freaking edge terminology, anything that's related to realistic team building and replicating the simulation aspect of it would be my ideal implementations, and they're going in that direction in a lot of ways. Okay, we did get a couple Twitter questions. Let's rip through those real quick. Just a couple ones I liked. What would be a reasonable trade package for Rodgers to Denver? I love the idea of an Eric Stokes, Patrick Surtain flip, two corners that got drafted to play the same scheme in the first round. So you flip those, you go probably a couple first-round picks, and that might be enough. I also think some kind of deal where you flop Jeudy and Davante Adams could also work well for both teams. If Denver can afford that, because Adams' contract is up, and Adams has that amazing chemistry with Rodgers. But, if the Packers are going to a new regime, paying a 29-year-old receiver $125 million, that's a weird window for them. It might make more sense to go get a Jerry Jeudy to develop with Love. So that's what I did in my my Packers rebuild on my secondary YouTube channel. It's probably not realistic to flip Jeudy and Davante in there, but I would say a pair of firsts, and I do think it's realistic to say Surtain and Stokes could flip. From SCU Productions, if Drew Lock becomes a top 20 quarterback quickly next year, what is the Broncos' ceiling? I think they can legit compete for a Super Bowl. If he's a top 20 guy, so if he's, he's kind of a sporadic playmaker, so let's say he's, I don't know, it wouldn't be Jameis Winston levels, but who would be maybe an example? I mean, like more mobile Phillip Rivers from last year, maybe? Like, yeah, they could win a Super Bowl with that. For sure. I think we had another Broncos question in here. No, we did not. Okay, so this one's from Panda. Shout out to Panda, loyal Twitch viewer. I've heavily researched the Shane Waldron offense. I expect a lot of heavy 3 wide receivers with a lot of smash, play action post deep, and crossers. Do I think his offensive structure could and will work? Yeah, I think attacking the deep middle of the deep outside of the field through play action and getting Russ on the move with that baseline of that Shanahan offense. Yes, I think it can and will work. I think that was an excellent hire to cater to Russ's skill set. Best Juicy Lucy asks Nut Bunnies. Juicy Lucy is the local Minneapolis burger style where they load up the meat and cheese on the inside of the burger. And gotta go Blue Door, man. I met my fiance at Blue Door, so I'm a little biased, but I've always been a huge fan of Blue Door. Their tater tots are spectacular. They got a couple, I think they got 3 locations around the Twin Cities, so gotta go Blue Door. Or the Depot right next to Target Center is also very good. But on the topic of Minneapolis burgers, if you're ever in Minneapolis, you gotta go to Parlor Bar. The best burger I've ever had. Okay, from Dylan, what is the best way to study tape? This is a great one to end on here for the mailbag, for beginners specifically. So I've told people this before, but something I really suggest is take a team who was really good last year, call it the Titans or the Chiefs or someone that was a storyline of last year, and just watch their full season on Game Pass. You can do the condensed versions. Just watch their full season, start to finish. And, the reason I say that as opposed to diving right into all 22, which eventually is where you're going to want to get, I think if you just really consume a team season and consume a team season that you're removed from, don't do the team you're a fan of, you really start to see you pick up on stuff. You pick up on player archetypes. You pick up on scheme. You pick up on obviously, you see how different teams prepare for the same team. It's just a really good way to kind of embrace the NFL. And then once you get a better understanding of the game, that's when you can dial in the all-22. But I don't know if – and you can also kind of pick up on what the announcers are saying too, which is also good. But I don't know if necessarily just for a beginner to just dive into all-22 is necessarily the best way to do it. So that's a big suggestion there. But obviously a Game Pass subscription is an absolute must if you're trying to get into the NFL. So that's going to do it for the mailbag version of the show. We are going to end the podcast here with my interview with Alex. But I hope you guys enjoy the mailbag. I hope you enjoy the interview as well. And then I will be posting the next deep dive tomorrow afternoon as well. So appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy, and peace out. And now welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. I am thrilled to welcome on Alex Barbour. I headed over to join his podcast in the pre-draft process, and we were doing mock draft. And I got to say, man, I love the draft content you're doing. Not just I like your takes and opinions and think you're definitely heading places, but just fun to talk to you, man. You're a fun guy to talk to, and happy to have you on. And you're going to be the first honorary deep dive reaction fan representative here. It's also a part of your channel, as you like to do mock the mocks and stuff. So kind of your comfort zone in a lot of ways. So yeah, welcome on everybody. Make sure you check out as well the Hail Mary podcast on YouTube, and you can plug your Twitter as well if you want, but I'm just going to pass it on to you to say hello.
Yeah. Well, hello guys. I'm finally glad to be able to be a part of your channel. Obviously, a lot of you guys have probably come out and checked out my channel because Marcus and I did a killer mock draft. So that was absolutely awesome. One of the most fun experiences that I've had. So thank you, Marcus, for allowing me to come on here and to be the first, hopefully first is not the worst, but first honorary member on this type of video series. So we're going to have a lot of fun today, and I'm going to be talking about my kind of reactions as a Steelers fan to what was in that Steelers deep dive that just got released a day or so ago. So we're going to be breaking it up. If I'm going to just give them a quick little layout, Marcus, that we're going to talk about where I'm going to agree and disagree with what Marcus was talking about in his video. And then we're going to kind of talk about my thoughts on the offensive scheme. And because I have a little bit of my own opinion on that, where I think that the Steelers should be going more West Coast and not the spread, which I think some of you guys will agree with and appreciate after we struggled watching Big Ben completely die last year. And then we'll go too high, too low, which is going to be a fun little segment for y'all. But let's kick into it. I first wanted to say that the first topic is going to be talking about Pat Freiermuth. So personally, if you guys follow me on Twitter, it's going to be in the description. Don't worry about it. I don't need to plug it here. You guys will see whenever I do sports writing for Primetime Sports Talk, and I always do scouting reports. Pat Freiermuth was one of my first, and it was something where I thought he was a perfect fit for the Steelers, but I had noticed a lot of flaws in his game to where Marcus, you think that he's round 1, round 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more into like the mid to late round 2 guy, and I thought he fit perfectly. I thought the Steelers did a great job round 1, round 2, fitting Steelers players. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about Kendrick Green, which is somebody who I actually didn't like. But I think Pat Freiermuth was an excellent pick if they paired it up the next round with somebody better. So that brings me on to Kendrick Green. Kendrick Green he's a solid guy, especially since we got rid of Castro. We kind of probably need that flexibility as a guard center hybrid, especially since our line always gets obliterated every single year. It's nice. However, I am friends with RJ Gillen, the now director of scouting for the San Francisco 49ers. We agreed that Quinn Meinerz was a much better fit. So when I scouted Green, I didn't really think he fit the Steelers too well. I think his flexibility was probably his best trait coming into the draft, which again, development can always change that. However, I think Quinn Meinerz was more raw, but he was also more mean, more aggressive, and I thought he would have fit a Najee Harris style run game a little bit better. He's just a nasty animal, and I thought that would fit the Steelers and kind of give him more of an identity. And that was my type of thoughts on that. Obviously, I'll let you respond to that if you want to.
Yeah, I totally agree that Meinerz was a higher end prospect than Green. I don't know, something about him too. I just have like this belief in him. Like, I don't know, there's something about his character that just from the outside looking in just feels like he's going to work out. But I actually thought stylistically, they both were kind of that wide zone Shanahan, like elite athlete, get him on the move, great run blockers. Yeah. Kendrick Green's a different type of player than they have on the interior there. And I think I mentioned how maybe the fact that he's a little quicker and lighter will be complemented a little more by having a Trey Turner and Dotson next to him. So you're not getting overwhelmed by power because you can get those double teams in there with those big guys. So I think from a schematic fit, I think that was very similar, but I do agree that Meinerz is a better prospect. I would have taken Meinerz for sure.
Yeah.
And as far as Pat Freiermuth goes, I think it was an excellent value. And I think you just look at their draft as a whole. It's like, you're really going to walk out of that draft without any of these tackles? Like, really? That's the game plan here. And I didn't even hate the Najee Harris pick, but it's just, it didn't all seem to really add up to me. So you seem to have just slight disagreements with my valuations there, I suppose.
Oh yeah. Well, my big issue was the fact with Freiermuth, with Kendrick Green, was the fact that we didn't pair it with a solid tackle. Obviously, there was someone who fell to the 7th round that I had a light second on. That's Stone Forsythe. You and I agreed that would have been a much better pick than Dan Moore. I wasn't having a straight hard on for Stone Forsythe. I thought that he was Ty and Secchi coming out. He was solid enough to fill in when you need him to. Solid swing tackle, very mobile. But he's probably not going to be good enough to start long term. But that's kind of what the Steelers needed right now. We need a patch. More than anything, especially since you have Chukuma Okorafor. For God bless, we're going to have that as our starting left tackle. But
I like that term for Forsythe, the patch. Like kind of day one impact, but doesn't necessarily have the hand like footwork or foot speed or athletic upside. Yeah. Dan Moore is interesting, but I also questioned Kevin Dotson. So I'm just like, I'm going to kind of step back a second on the whole, like questioning their 4th round pick at offensive line, because I was like, I don't know who the hell Kevin Dotson is. And then he was one of the best rookies in the league. So we'll see.
Yeah. I like the Louisiana kids. I was a pretty big fan when they got Dotson, but that wasn't an educated liking.
Sure.
Dotson. This was an educated not liking Dan Moore.
Okay.
I was not a big fan of that pick whatsoever, especially since my guy was on the board. But the first one where we actually disagree on legitimately was Quincy Roche. Obviously, we saw the trend where we see a more undersized guy who needs a lot of growth to be able to be an NFL impact. Alex Highsmith, I'm referencing, actually be a pretty solid impact way before he was supposed to be. So I think that the depth is not nearly as bad because I like Quincy Roche. it's not like I was having him in the 3rd round or anything. I thought he was a 5th round prospect, right? But he has that explosiveness. He has that quick twitch, which is probably as much as you can ask for from a depth player, because there's no hope of him starting, right? Like if someone gets down with an injury, then we have something to worry about. But in terms of rotational depth, being able to get the guys fresh reps, I think he's perfectly fine. He'll be able to step into that Highsmith role very well. And to be honest, I think his level of experience as he was a redshirt senior, right? Because he came from,
I know he had played, at Temple for a while. I think he was, maybe a redshirt senior, just a straight up senior, but he'd started like 4 years.
Yeah. Like I know our friend Mason, he had like a late or like an early second on Quincy Roche. I was like, I'm not going to go that far, but I mean, he had some nice technicalities to him. Like, he has some positives, but again, the upside isn't really there, and you have to see the competition just jumps up in the NFL.
Yeah.
So if you have that upside, that's what puts you as a late day 3 type of player. Why you got selected there, and it makes sense. But I thought it was a steal. I liked it. Extra depth, and you saw the rest of the depth. We don't really have much else, so I was like, Holly, freaking yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to go in the offensive approach if you don't.
Let's talk about that, because there was definitely some pushback from Steelers fans, kind of voicing the same thing you're about to break down here. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So I said this before you even brought that up in our pre-recording session, but when you were talking about, like we need to get Ben the quick pass game, I said, beware of that, because we saw last year, Ben actually quite struggled when people start figuring out this quick pass game. And to be honest, Ben is reckless. You're not going to be using him as somebody who's going to be consistently accurate, consistently good decision-making all the time. And that's what you kind of need with a quick pass game. You need him to think properly. And his best plays, you look at the highlights. I mean, granted, they're highlights, but it's throwing deep to Chase Claypool. He's known for making these beautiful 1 in a million style throws. So my idea is put him into a West Coast. Obviously, I assume they're not doing that this year. You are much better at breaking down offensive schemes than I am currently. I'm still growing in that. Obviously, I appreciate you for acknowledging that I can grow. But I think that he fits a West Coast better, because you implement both that shot scheme where you can just take a shot downfield. You have 2 amazing guys, Claypool as well as James Washington, which you see every single preseason. He does amazingly because you just don't give a damn. You're just throwing it deep, seeing what guys got. And then you have your quick game with nice separators. You have JuJu, who can separate well enough, but Deontay Johnson, the star of the show at separating. And you have 2 great tight ends now. I think it's perfect for them. Obviously, I think that they can adjust. Canada, he was in college for quite a bit of time. So, I mean, I'm sure he can pull some cats out of the bag or something like that and do a good job. But I think that's the way to make Ben successful. If you want to get that over 9 wins, you're going to need to throw it deep. That's how you dominate. Otherwise, you're in your roster.
So I think what we're getting at here is the difference between what would be great and what's realistic. Yeah. Because you mentioned West Coast, and my first thought was like a Shanahan. Is that kind of what you mean? Kind of the play action?
I'm thinking just more bare bones. The idea of the
pushing the ball downfield more.
Or home run. Yeah, like just push it until you can't push it.
Because when I think about that and the way the Steelers are constructed, and the reason I don't think we see that, and I agree, like if they could get that back, like hell yeah, you open up the offense, that's ideal. You have the receivers to do it. There's really 2 ways to push the ball downfield. It's either establish a pocket on 7-step drops, or you run the Shanahan play fakes.
Yeah. And
I think neither of those are going to work, because you go 7-step drops, you don't have the pass protection to do it.
I agree with that.
And then you look at trying to do the Shanahan thing. For one, you got the elephant in the room. The Big Ben's like, fuck play action. I'm not doing that. I'm not turning my head to the defense. He's like been super stubborn about that. So even if you get past that, which maybe he's willing to open up, his mind. Aaron Rodgers did it at 36, taking on the Shanahan system, kind of changing the way he views play action. So it's not like that's an insurmountable leap, but the offensive line is not constructed for that system, because we talked about Kendrick Green. He's a wide zone type, but none of those other guys are particularly mobile, especially like Zach Banner. He's not going to go, set up a naked boot pocket off to his right. So And Big Ben himself is not an outstanding athlete at this stage in his career to run the boot game. So I just think the way the team is constructed is it just kind of prohibits the structure of setting up the deep ball. So that's really my worry with the Steelers offense is the talent, not necessarily the scheme.
I can agree with that. I think the offensive line really puts us into a nook because Ben is Ben, and he has given up a little bit of his ego. I mean, he took pay cuts. He said, "I'm willing to do whatever for this team." Blah blah blah. Hopefully, that translates into more action than just taking a pay cut, right?
Yeah. Well, I do really like what you said about how you see Big Ben as more of this playmaker type, not necessarily the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. And they're kind of forced to ask him to play outside of what he's comfortable. And I think that's really what they're trying to balance. But I like that you pointed that out, that he's never been, the methodical, perfect decision guy. He's more, so he's kind of like Philip Rivers right now. We're like, yeah, the 2 out of 3 look good. And then it's like, Ben, no, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I like that you pointed that out, that he would be more comfortable with a better offensive line and in a system that lets him get the ball downfield, but they're just kind of caught in a crossroads.
This is a random idea I'm throwing out here in the middle. You now have an excellent, one of the best blocking tight ends that I've ever seen in Pat Freiermuth. If you are able to have him establish the edge, you could do something with a slightly mobile system, which of course Ben is a fat ass, but he can move when he'll move to be able to feel more comfortable in the scheme. I feel like he's going to have to give up one way or another, like either stick to the quick pass game, which we already know his mentality is not going to do that, or he can do a little bit more athletic play.
Yeah.
I think he's going to enjoy chucking the ball deep and being able to use his new asset at tight end as well as Najee. Najee's a pretty damn good blocker.
Yeah.
So there are 2 more new assets for blocking on the offense that could potentially, not saying that they will, could potentially open up that style of play. So there is hope. However, you are right. Realism might not be the case. That is the issue, is that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. If only Josh Dobbs could combine his athleticism with Big Ben, that'd be great. We'd be perfect in that situation.
There you go. Yeah, just have Josh Dobbs work out. The perfect plan for saving the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, I do want to throw one thing back at you. There's a player named James Pierre that I have been informed by Steelers fan. He is the starting cornerback too, and they're fine in the secondary. So what did I miss, or what are Steelers fans missing on James Pierre?
I'll put it this way. If this is true, I'm fine with it. That's great, right? You want a UDFA from 2020 from FAU to do it, to be able to start on our squad. Hopefully for the right reasons, especially since I've been seeing Steelers Nation highlights being putting up videos of him being a rising star. However, I'll throw this back. The Steelers drafted Justin Lane in the 3rd round, PFF rating him in the 2nd round as somebody who's extremely developmental, former wide receiver, transitioned to cornerback, Michigan State, right? He is an absolutely dynamic player, great athlete, and has the sky-high potential. If you guys are saying that eventually he could be, James Pierre could be cornerback too, maybe we can start talking, because I didn't really see too many flashes. However, I believe that they could be there. But if you're going to say that you're going to have a UDFA instantly start over a 3rd round guy who has a lot of potential, you're blowing all the potential out of the water you just need to see what Justin's going to do. Exactly. He's probably going to screw up, but we're the Steelers. We screw up on the corners all the damn time. You might as well just see if he's going to be Artie Burns 2.0, or else he could just light it up. We need the youth, so just test him out. He's athletic, he's big, he's able to transition well. Just give him a shot. So that's my take.
Well, that's a good transition. You mentioned screwing up at corner, and we were just kind of talking about this, and we were just kind of asking, what were the Steelers doing bringing JuJu back?
Yeah. And
kind of as a fan, were you torn at all on that? Because JuJu's kind of this fan favorite type, or were you just totally no, this was dumb. Why did we do this? You mentioned, should they have brought Steven Nelson back and let JuJu go? So I'll just hand that off to you.
So I'll say this. After having my own YouTube channel for now over a year, God bless, I don't know how the hell time flew like that. I have become far less biased towards my team. So I might not have the die-hard fan core where it's like I love JuJu so much because of his personality. I see what he does. I think he's a solid asset, but I see what Steven Nelson does, and you see the opportunity cost. We could lose somebody like JuJu Smith-Schuster and throw a guy like Mapletron out there to be a true number one, push James Washington to try to be a number two. And that would be solid. I mean, you don't know. Maybe they could screw up, but we already talked about we have so many issues with this offensive line that, I mean, the offense is screwed as it is, right? Like, we're just on a wing and a prayer there. But our defense, that's the biggest issue. That cornerback 2 spot that we're talking about, James Pierre, I believe, or else Justin Lane.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's sad. We just
JuJu might be your best cornerback too.
I know. It's like,
maybe just play him on defense and
put Steven Denmark there. Doesn't he have like a 47-inch vert or something crazy?
Steven Denmark is a freak.
He's an athletic freak. He's like 6'4" with like a 40-something inch vert.
Yeah.
He's crazy. But like I think that you lost probably the one piece that kept our defense competitive. You added Jamar Chase in the division. And then subtracted. I mean, you added Rashad Bateman as well. Excuse me, not to mention that. And then you subtracted.
And you added Odell.
Oh, God.
All 3 teams.
Like every single team just got better. And we just got worse.
I think you can point to a lot of things that the Steelers did this offseason that were just kind of head scratching. And it's like, this is kind of what I was struggling with the deep dive is like, they're the Steelers. Yeah, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but you keep adding on these questionable decisions. It's like, I can't fully endorse this.
Hope is so far. You need to see proof in the pudding. And we just talked about this before. In the past 2 years, maybe 3, we've lost all 5 of our starting linemen that made us a top 5 offensive line. Marcus Gilbert, you got Ramon Foster, David Castro, Pouncey, Villanueva, all gone. All gone. It's just, it hurts. It hurts. But yeah, I mean, I don't think JuJu is nearly as valuable as Nelson to us. And we didn't replace him the way I thought, the Steelers are going to find somebody. They didn't. Joe Hayden, you brought this up. Joe Hayden might not, he's probably in his damn coffin right now. He's getting old as hell. Yeah. Like, you don't even know. Each year, he's going to get worse athletically. And he already gets torched. Like, how much more can you ask of Minka? And Tremaine Edmonds, like, you really think he's going to be able to pick the slack? He's going to be a $3 million a year.
I will say, credit Steelers Nation. I did not get a single Tremaine Edmonds breakout season comment. They don't stand Tremaine Edmonds like Raiders fans stand Jonathan Abram, and Tremaine Edmonds is a much better player than Jonathan Abram. So credit Steelers Nation for being smarter than that, being smarter than Raiders fans. I'm sorry, Raiders fans. Okay, so. Last little segment here. I want to throw back my rankings at you and just instant reaction. Too high, too low on my ranking of each group. So quarterback, I had 22nd.
That's just about right. I'm gonna be honest. That's just about right. I've lost faith in Big Ben. However, it's still Big Ben. It's not Daniel Jones at this point.
For sure. Running back at 12.
That's a little bit too high for me right now. So, I mean, if you're talking about the running backs on their own, or are you talking about the running backs just?
It is the room as a group.
The room as a group. Oh, that's too high. That's too high. If you're talking about Najee, you got me on board. But, I mean, you're talking about.
Well, the starter does take the most of the weight and then the depth. So, the Browns, for example, would rank a little bit higher than your Chubb. Well, Chubb's a freaking beast too, but
Najee. No, I mean, I would put Najee around 12. Himself around 12. Then you got Kalen Ballage, who, again, you don't know which Kalen Ballage you're going to get. Dolphins Kalen Ballage or else Chargers, in my opinion. So we don't know how it's going to work because he could be just Benny Snell 2.0. And God, that don't even get me started on that. And then I don't have much faith in him.
I was surprised, dude, watching back the Steelers. I did like 3 games before I got in the deep dive. I was like, I have not watched a bad running back in the NFL for a while. And I was like, it was weird to be reminded, even like doing college tape, like you don't see a lot of genuinely bad running backs. Like, where is he going? There's no juice. Like, he's just not, it was weird. It was a weird experience. I had not had that on Game Pass in a while.
I know.
All right. Receiver. This one I was told I was too low. I had the Steelers at 17.
Oh, as a unit, you're just about right. Because the depth is garbage. The depth is completely garbage, in my opinion. I mean, you're is it Anthony Johnson from Buffalo as our number 5? Like,
Yeah,
that,
or McLeod.
yeah, or McLeod. I need to do more research on that McLeod guy because McLeod was pretty solid. Oh, not McLeod, the guy
Or
who in the video.
yeah, Ray McLeod.
Not
Oh,
Ray.
Isaiah McCoy. Yeah.
McCoy.
Yeah,
I
he's
need
interesting.
to that guy.
I wouldn't
So
be surprised if he turns into something.
if he shows some talent to me when I watch, then maybe I would be saying you should probably bump him up to 15. But overall, there's not. It's like the Jaguars to me. There's not one superstar piece right now that is like blowing my mind.
That's what it's all. So like if I go up from where we're at, you got Carolina, you got DJ Moore. Washington, you got Terry McLaurin. Chargers, you got Keenan Allen. Tennessee, you got AJ Brown. Buffalo, you got Stephon Diggs. Like all these guys have alphas. That's to me what Pittsburgh lost.
We
and like I don't think people realize how many good receiving cores there are in the league. So I'm glad to hear you say that that's middle of the road, good, not insane.
You have to look at it as Claypool could eventually become an alpha. That's totally true, but we're looking at it right now. And he's not that yet. He has time to grow. And to be honest, the offense is not conducive for him to be
exactly.
Yep. So we'll see in time. I think that will definitely jump up in time. And if we didn't have JuJu, I would dare say you should push it higher because I think then it's like, okay, Chase is pushing himself.
That's what's crazy about the JuJu thing. It's like they may have actually been better if they didn't bring him back because it might have opened them up a little bit. So I think we agree about the OLine at last for now. Do you think they end the year at last?
Yeah.
Or you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I put that down as like, you can't, they have to be. Like on paper, there's no one close to as bad. But I'm just like, I still feel like they have some idea of what they're doing. Like whether it's Zach Banner or Kendrick Green being like, I feel like something in there is going to hit. Some of it won't hit. I feel like they end up at like 27 is my gut.
There's too much hope right now.
I know. Maybe I'm the optimist.
Yeah, I mean, I love my Steelers, but that like the teams that I love, I'm going to be the most harsh on because I'm going to be very honest with them. It's not looking good. Now we could make some moves during the regular season. There's going to be guys who are like, if our team starts looking like,
but O-line usually not. Usually O-line's not a position you can go get a guy. All right, so we got run defense at 6.
Honestly, I think it's a little bit rich.
You do?
Yeah. And it's a little rich. If you're
what would be
I would say probably
like the weak point.
I would say the linebackers are the weak point in their run defense.
You think so? Okay.
I mean, I don't think Devin Bush is big enough to be an enforcer. If somebody gets past that first level, like I love Devin Bush too. I straight up love him to death. But I thought you were a little bit low on Devin Bush. But yeah, I think the Steelers linebackers need some help in the run game.
Okay. I don't entirely disagree. So pass rush was 4th. I'm curious about that one.
Too low. I think that we can rush on the interior, exterior. We can damn blitz from the slot. I believe that our safeties can blitz as well. I think we're probably top 2, especially with TJ. TJ is absolutely unbelievable.
I don't normally like to do this mid-series, but I did kind of regret. I had just done Chicago, and then I get to Pittsburgh. I'm like, they're close, but I kind of regret. So I have Pittsburgh at 88 and Chicago at 88.1. I'm like, I kind of wish I had Pittsburgh 3. I have the teams that, if we make that change, the teams I have above them are the Rams, because I just genuinely think Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Like they rank at the top of pass rush every year, no matter who, because of Aaron Donald. Like the things, like the production he has, but also just the things he opens up for everybody else to just create easy lanes. It's really crazy when you look into like what he opens up. And then I had Washington jumping him this year.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I think that, I mean, if you talk about the Aaron Donald effect, I can get that. I think there's a certain limit because I think there's a TJ Watt effect as well. I don't think Aaron Donald is that supreme to TJ Watt. I think he is supreme, certainly, and definitively. But I think that the addition of Hayward to it And then got Alualu, who's a sneaky guy. I think that they could be 2, if not 1, if they're all healthy. So losing
Fair
budget
enough.
certainly hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
That would have pushed them up into that 1 territory for me.
So the linebackers I had at 15. I feel like you're going to say it's too high.
Too low.
Too low.
Yeah.
So your thing with Bush is just run defense.
Yeah. My only thing is that he's just a little bit small, and I don't think that they're as good as run defense. I think they're around 18th in run defense, and I like as linebackers, and I think they're probably, because Devin Bush has a lot of room to grow, but he's still growing, probably around like 13th or 12th. Like you're around the right mark. I just think that maybe notch it up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm being nitpicky as shit here. I'm saying like
that's fine. That's totally fine. That's what the YouTube comments do. So
that's true. I have him at like 14 or maybe 13 because I like Robert Spillane as well.
So for defensive backs, I had him at 26.
Defensive backs as a whole?
Yep. So secondary as a whole.
Man, I'm gonna be honest, too high. I love Minka, and I think he's amazing, but there's only so much that he can do.
Yeah.
Joe,
it's like the Lamar Jackson effect. Like how much can a running ability improve a guy's ranking as a quarterback? How much can one free safety improve a whole secondary?
Yeah, because he is absolutely amazing, right? He was one of the best first round picks for best trades the Steelers have ever made.
Right.
Like, he is the definition of a ball hawk. I think he's very similar to like just the threat of Kevin Byard with those interceptions. He's absolutely cool. But I think our corner core, probably 32nd. Safety core, I would say maybe 15th because we have a superstar, but I'm not a fan of Tremaine Edmonds. That's just not my thing. Is it Tremaine or Terrell?
He's Terrell.
It's Terrell.
He's Terrell.
Yeah, I'm like, we have Trey, Tremaine, and Terrell.
I know.
I mean, okay, that's a little bit too low for me. I would say we're top 10 with the safety class. But again, one safety can't push us past like 28th. Because the corners.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think I have a little bit of faith in Sutton.
Yeah. I like Sutton.
Or the combination of Sutton and Lane. I think. Yeah. I actually think Lane, I'm giving him a chance. I think year 3.
Yeah. I mean, I'm being a realist though, where it's like I haven't seen anything yet. So
exactly.
What I know now.
I mean, that's why I gave him a 70, which is technically generous.
Yeah, I mean, based
on what we've seen.
My idea would be 68 for Lane and 72 for Hayden because I just feel like once you get into these higher ages, you're going to drop heavy. I mean, it happens. It really happens. I think that if we didn't have Minka, I think I could put Hayden at safety, and then that would instantly revitalize. Maybe we could drop up to 20, but you can't just put him at free safety like that.
All right.
That's that.
Well, this was as fun as I expected, man. It's always good talking to you. It was a ton of fun, and thanks for representing Steeler Nation. And
of course, I know that Steeler Nation is probably pissed off at me, especially with this Mr. Pierre.
But they can just take it out on me. I can handle it.
Well, if you guys want to come to my channel and take it out on me, I'm willing to defend myself. So feel free to drop by. And that's all for me right now.
Yeah. Anything else you want to promote before we get out of here?
No, man, I'm not here to promote. I just want you guys, if you guys like me, you guys want to see some more stuff, come to my channel. If you don't, my channel ain't the place for you. I got honest opinions.
Absolutely, man.
All right.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening, and peace out.
Peace out.